Hello everyone, I am Ski Lodge Minion Michelle, and today for this What I Would Have Done Thursday, I'm going to be looking in particular at a sequel, in particular to a famous horror film, The Exorcist, and in this case, this sequel is called The Exorcist II, The Heretic. This is probably well known as probably one of the worst as far as sequels go when it comes to horror films. In particular associated with exorcism. And I apologize this video is being uploaded late, but unfortunately the minions have been having meetings, so we've not had the chance to upload videos on time, but we should have everything uploaded to Sunday's video by today. But without further ado, basically there are a variety of things though that I think that could have been done to improve the sequel to this particular film. First, right out of the gate, there is a lot of strange science involved within this film. It almost tries to combine religion with science in this one more so than the first film, where it was just purely religious exorcism that ultimately somehow really saved the day. But here we have various forms of mind reading that is done within this film using a particular device that does not make any real sense as far as a film like this is concerned, because when you look at the first film, it was largely trying to be as realistic under the circumstances, whereas here, having this very strange kind of out there technology that doesn't even really exist doesn't, I think, suit this film ultimately well. So I would have definitely scrapped those scenes that involved mind reading. I feel like it's really unnecessary, and it really was a thing that kind of, I think, dragged the film a little bit and improved it from, and basically taking it away, I think, would have improved upon its pacing, because a lot of the times those scenes go on fairly slowly and nothing seems to ultimately happen from it. So except really strange, bizarre things that really don't ultimately make any sense. So I think that could have been completely scrapped. And I think that this plot could have been a lot more simplistic than they make it out to be. As far as a sequel is concerned, I think it would make sense that afterwards Regan, the girl that was possessed in the first movie, would obviously feel a lot of psychological trauma. She would probably even feel guilty for ultimately, basically killing the priests that were ultimately killed within the first film. So I think there is a lot of things that could be associated to the second film that could have brought about a lot of commentary, because there isn't really that much of an exploration as to the aftermath of an exorcism. And I think had they focused in on that aspect and more so Regan's character, I think we would have had a stronger story as far as development is concerned. And ultimately, as a result of her trauma, she sort of seeks a psychiatrist to help her out. And ultimately, she wants, though, a priest to also be of assistance to her, because obviously it helped her within the past. So she basically wants them both to sort of help her cope. And obviously the psychiatrist and the priest, I think, could have an interesting dynamic where the psychiatrist obviously is more interested in using science and facts, whereas the priest likes to use various kinds of ritual-like methods in order to sort of improve Regan's psychological state. So there could have been some kind of banter and back and forth, and although they do touch on it in the movie, it's not as well explored at all. So I think had they brought that to sort of the forefront, like using, you know, the science versus religion angle, I think it would have worked to this film's advantage, because primarily within the first film, we only really see exorcism being utilized because the scientists have no idea what to do with Reagan. So, um, and basically what could have come of that is there could have been, as a result of Reagan being sort of in the presence of other people within the uh, psychiatric facility, um, there could have been various strange things that start happening to the other patients, and maybe even some of the patients could end up being possessed. Maybe even Reagan is possessed at one point again, or something, one another. But I think there could have been a variety of angles in which they took this to where possession was more involved in a closer proximity than what they initially do with the plot, which is to somehow have a demon in Africa. Like, literally, that part of the movie just does not make any sense. So, and then having the priest go to Africa to find the demon and, all that, that's just ridiculous. I mean, they could have completely scrapped that. Don't bother with Africa. Forget it. Just leave it in the spot where you have the primary characters within the film. Like, you don't need to take it off somewhere else. So I think had they gone for that angle, it would have, I think, ultimately worked as well, because the psychiatrist would probably think, well, all of these strange things that are happening are a result of people's mind and whatnot, and maybe she starts to realize that things are, maybe not as straightforward as they seem, and, maybe there could even be fake possessions too. So some people are actually possessed, and then there's other people who just have a psychiatric problem. So, you could have mixed in a little bit so that it could give a certain amount of unpredictability as far as who's really possessed and who's really not. So again, mixing in the science with the religious aspect to it. So I think that would have allowed for a lot more mystery, a lot more intrigue, and a lot more angles into which they could have gone with the story. And ultimately, the goal is to stop the spread of possessions, and ultimately get people who are possessed to be unpossessed, and basically in doing so the priest performs exorcism and whatnot. So yeah, I think that angle that they could have done, at least in the sequel, would, I think, suited this film a whole lot better. I mean, it just seems like they were trying to make it too all over the place, and as a result, it made it a lot more confusing and a lot less interesting to follow. Whereas the first film is a lot more direct, it's a lot more clear as to what's going on. So I think that's really the reason why a lot of horror films, in particular ones that are rather scary, work, is because there is an intended focus, and you see certain things that are supposed to be, explained throughout, instead of leaving these really bizarre things out there and not really doing anything with them. And I think that's largely due primarily to the fact that they tried to associate somehow Reagan's possession with somebody's possession within Africa. It's just, it just doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, but that's really ultimately what I would have done in order to have made the film, I think, a little stronger. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say, though, about this film, though, without really giving too much away as far as to really what ultimately, I mean, happens have you not seen it. But at the same time, it's really almost not worth exploring because I think it just totally undermines everything that was happening within the first film. But yeah, I think though that's really all I can say about what I would have done. I think, you know, straightforward approach would have suited it better. But I'm more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say, but I think that's all I can say for my video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. Hopefully I can stop by next year. But until hopefully next year, maybe. Bye-bye.